In tonight's edition of Focus, southern Italy's shame, racism or the Mafia? What is behind the violent clashes between locals and migrant workers that shook a town in Italy's southwestern toe for 3 days last week? Well, 50 people were injured in the riots. Extra police were drafted in and more than 1,000 African immigrants were subsequently evacuated. Now, some commentators have called it ethnic cleansing. Others say the unrest was not only rooted in racism, but also linked to the Mafia. Well, for more on that, I'm now joined by our Rome correspondent, Alexi Mascarelli. Alexi, thanks for being with us this evening. Now, Italy has had a little time now to digest last week's violence. How is it being interpreted over there? There's been some soul-searching. The Pope has condemned these attacks on immigrants. But what has Berlusconi had to say?
Silvio Berlusconi, the Prime Minister who made his political comeback here in Rome yesterday, still hasn't made any official comments on the riots of 5 nights ago now in Calabria. It's quite surprising, and certainly it has disappointed human rights group who've been defending those migrants and the fact that they had to leave that area around Rosarno. But apart from that, the debate really around that those riots is almost over now. 5 days on, we had the Interior Minister saying that the violence was caused by too much tolerance towards illegal immigration in this country over the years. It caused outrage in the left-wing opposition. The church, as you mentioned, came in defense of the migrants. The Pope himself said they have the rights, they have to be defended whether they're legal or not. And certainly we've heard comments from church leaders saying that once again it's the weakest of the lot that has paid the strongest price. We've heard some very interesting comments also from Roberto Saviano. He's a writer specialised in mafia research, and he said that we should, us Italians, we should be grateful to these African immigrants who've had the courage to stand up, to rebel against the conditions they were living in, outrageous conditions, against the local mafia, something that us Italians haven't had the courage to do so far.
Interesting. Alexi, do you think that we'll be seeing more such incidents in Italy?
The fact that the debate is almost over shows that there is little interest really from most Italians. You might remember that some 15 months ago around Naples, 6 West Africans were shot again in a killing that was linked to the local mafia, the Camorra that controls the drug trafficking, the prostitution there. It made some headlines, but within a week it was over and they're still living in dreadful conditions, mostly illegal.
Thank you very much for joining us, Alexi Mascarelli, our correspondent in Rome. Let's take another look now at what happened in Rosarno in Italy's Calabria region.
These are images which has Italy rattled. Foreign workers are being forced to leave by the locals in Rosarno, a Calabrian village. Residents have made it clear they're not welcome here, even though many of the Italians themselves have lived and worked abroad.
The blacks have no work because there's no jobs left. At the same time every year, they start causing trouble and complain they have poor living conditions. But they're the ones who live like that, not us. If their home stinks, that's not our fault.
For some Italians, making xenophobic comments in public does not present a problem, such as in this low-income district of Rome. Parents are about to pick up their children from school, and their opinion of Romanian immigrants is clear.
Let them stay in their own country. That's the only solution. Romanians took the work of Italians. They've imported prostitution, even more so than Albanians. I wasn't racist before, but after all this, I've become a racist.
Such views seem to be becoming more commonplace. With 4 to 5 million foreigners now living in the country, many Italians are starting to see them as a threat. This journalist says the country needs to take a long, hard look at its history.
Italians haven't learned the lessons from the past. Take, for instance, the pre-World War II racial laws. They say, yeah, but these were the fascists, as though fascists came from another planet. No French, British or German government minister would call black people a Negro or something offensive like that. But in Italy, they do.
This is a reference to Umberto Bossi, leader of the Northern League, a xenophobic movement and key ally of the Berlusconi government. The party uses xenophobic lines to rally its supporters.
I want to free our streets from illegal immigrants. Get all of them out. And I don't want any mosques either.
The Northern League's got the government to limit the number of foreign children in Italian schools. From next year, the maximum will be 30%.
I'm now joined by Alessandro Siclari, a journalist based in Messina in Sicily. Alessandro, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Now, you went to Rosarno to investigate following the unrest and actually during the unrest. Now, can you describe to us what you discovered? What was the situation like there?
Of course, yes. I went to Rosarno on Saturday to meet a guy from Burkina Faso and to see how the situation was going on. And when I arrived, the guy had already been sent to the emergency center of Crotone because the situation in Rosarno was very dangerous for all black migrants. And people were actually screaming against the journalists. They were complaining about the absence of the state, about the lack of work, and they were saying that blacks had to go away because in Calabria there was no work even for Italians.
And you wrote a report for us in which you described some of the very racist things that the locals were saying. What sort of things were they saying?
Yeah, they were talking about the lack of work, and they were saying that because of that, Niger could not come to their local town. There was no work for them. But I will not say that there was the racism the cause of that, because after talking with them, I understood that the situation is much more complex than that. If you talk to the people in Rosarno, they will tell you that they know that all human beings are equal. They will tell you that they were migrants until some years ago, and they understand very well what it means to be discriminated, because they were also discriminated. So, yeah.
Can you describe how the immigrants live there, what they were working as, the situation there?
Yeah, the situation of living is very, very bad for migrants. They were living in very bad hygienic conditions. They were also were paid very, very few money. You can consider they were paid 25 euros for each day, but in the southern part of Italy, it's not so little money compared to the normal per capita income. So this was,
Alessandro,
of course, what...
Could you explain the role of the Mafia there? Prosecutors are investigating the possibility that members of the 'Ndrangheta, the Calabrian Mafia, played a role in fomenting the violence there. Can you explain the Mafia's role?
Yes, of course, Mafia played a role, of course, because they have the control of the territory, but I will not say that they caused what happened in Rosarno. I would say that they reacted to the clashes because they wanted to reaffirm the control on the territories, and they participate to the behavior of the population. But I don't have enough elements to say that the clashes were organized by local mafia and 'Ndrangheta, even if they have an interest in the citrus fruit fields and in the market and the European funding related to this.
So what would you say caused the unrest in the first place then?
Sorry?
So what would you say caused the unrest in the first place then, Alessandro?
Well, I could say that one of the reasons, and we have to consider two elements. First of all, this year the price of oranges fell down because of the concurrence from other Northern African markets. And this means that for small entrepreneurs, it was no longer profitable to pick up oranges, and they prefer to leave them on the trees. The translation is very little work for migrants in general. The second element is related to the measures taken by the Italian government on migration. And the law created discrimination in the labor market. And if you add to that the very bad living condition and the fact that some guy shoot on them, you can easily understand what happened. I can also tell you that the entrepreneurs told me that they prefer to give jobs to Romanian or to people from Ukraine because they were European, and they risk less to give jobs to them rather than give jobs to irregular migrants from Africa. So I will not say that the problem is the skin. I would say that it's more a problem related to the labor market.
Alessandro Siclari, thank you very much for joining us. That's all we've got time for in this evening's edition of Focus.